Hey guys, when I was in university in the early 1980s, I went to Colorado State University, a conservative school in comparison to others, but still most of the teachers outside of science were either liberals or hardcore Marxists, and they supported the Soviet Union, communism, the whole bit. Yeah, in Fort Collins, Colorado in the 80s, that did exist. And I was against communism. I'm still am against communism. And I would argue with them. And one of the more persuasive arguments that they really had no answer to was, okay, if communism is so great, if the Soviet Union is so great, why do they have to keep people in their country by building a wall and having machine guns and pointing it at the citizens, right? That's a sign is probably not a worker's paradise if you always have to watch everyone and you have to worry about if your Olympic athletes are going to defect, or it's like a prison. And they didn't really have an answer to that. Typically they would say, well, communism works okay, it's just the wrong people that are running it. And it's, no matter what, no matter where communism is implemented, it's always just coincidentally the wrong people. What do you know? It could never be the system is flawed. No. It's just the wrong people. If we were in charge, it would be better. But you see this all over. You see it with North Korea, communist China was that way. They don't allow people to escape. And that shows the system sucks. And we see that here in the United States, not with communism, but like, say, diversity. You've been taught in school and in your workforce that diversity is a strength, it's enriching, it makes life better. But everyone, when they get a chance, they get the hell away from diversity. They want to live in a nice all-white area. They don't want to live and be enriched. They don't like it. They may say they do, but how they live is totally different. So they vote with their feet. And governments hate that. They don't like people voting with their feet because then they can't control people. People move to what they find more enjoyable, how they want to live. And governments can't tolerate that because eventually they lose their people. Like in the Soviet Union, if they allowed everyone to leave that wanted to leave, pretty soon all the smart people would be gone and the whole thing would have collapsed even sooner. And I think we're starting to see a similar thing in the United States. It's just started, but it's really interesting, and I'll link the article. It was from the New Republic. They're a leftist website. They were a magazine. So it's done kind of mockingly, like, oh, Americans, conservatives want a safe space, because, you know, conservatives are always mocked the term safe space. And what it is Russia is proposing a couple of villages outside of Moscow for just a limited number of families, American or Canadian families, that want to leave the United States or Canada for ideological reasons, meaning you feel persecuted here. And I know that seems crazy. Wow, we're free, it's Russia that's under persecution. But if you think about it, in the United States and Canada now, and most Western countries, they're very anti-white. So if you're white, the government officially hates you. If you're Christian, the government hates you. You just look at all the policies are set up that way. So if you, let's say, have your family, you have a white son, he's going to be discriminated against trying to get into school. It's going to be harder for him to get a job and promotions. He's going to be told he has white privilege and he's toxic. If he gets in a fight with a minority, he will get the hate crime charges. It's a bad environment, and unless you're really dense, you can see that's the situation. And also the morality aspect of it. Do you really want your son to be taught in school that, you know, you're trapped in the wrong body, Johnny? We got to cut off your penis and put hormones in you. Do you really want your child to be told that? And in some cases, like in California, you don't even have a choice. If their teachers are able to push that Johnny's really a girl and needs his dick cut off, they're going to, no matter if you're a parent, you have no choice. They're going to take your kid away and sexually mutilate your child. Do you want to live in that situation? So Russia is offering an alternative. And Russia, they're not a democracy. They don't have like free speech or anything like that. But I will give this for Russia. They don't hate white people. They really don't. They don't hate their own citizens, which is a strange concept because our politicians actually hate Americans, normal Americans. They just hate you. They do. That was why when Mike Pence, when Tucker asked him a question about why should we spend all this money on Ukraine when that could be used to help American cities, and Mike Pence, he genuinely looked like, what? Oh, what are you talking about? That's not my concern. I'm concerned about Israel. I'm concerned about Ukraine. I'm concerned about my donors. Americans? What? Are you crazy? Is this crazy talk? And this is how the politicians think. They just don't care about you. Either they're apathetic or they hate you. The best you can hope for is apathetic. And in Russia, the government may be corrupt, but they don't hate the Russian people. And they don't hate Christians. They have an Orthodox Christianity, and you're not going to be persecuted because of that. So there is some attraction. I could see some people wanting to go to Russia. Should you do this? This is an interesting question because I've traveled. I lived in Hungary for a bit. There's some pros and cons, okay? First of all, this scheme would not be like for me. I'm too old. This has to be for some young person that really wants to take a chance. If nothing else, the language. When you get older, it's harder to learn a language. And if you don't know the language of the country you're in, you're always feeling like an alien. You have to understand the language because language kind of is how people think, is how they express themselves. So if you're young, you could probably learn the language easier than if you're older. So if you're older than like 30, I don't even think this would really be a realistic option. And also, the more ties you have to America, in just practical terms, you have to understand you'll lose everything. The government will hate you for doing that. They'll probably try to put up an iron wall, but the other way, prevent Americans from leaving. And at the very least, if you go, you're going to have a lot of tax issues. The IRS is still going to want your money. They're going to confiscate whatever your property you have in the United States. So if you go to Russia, to this plan here, you got to consider it permanent. Like you're never going to come back because they'll probably put charges on you in the United States. I have no doubt about it. So it's a forever thing. So you just got to really think about that. Like you have your job here. Okay, how are you going to get work in Russia? If you don't speak the language, you may not have the same position. In America, still, we have a lot more material prosperity than Russia. It's changing, Russia's coming up, but still, a lot of people, they have a comfortable existence in America. Now, this is on thin ice, the whole thing. The United States is starting to crumble, but for now, a lot of people, they have their nice house, their cars, they can do their vacations. In Russia, you'll be a much more simple life and you won't have all these things. This is a reality, and it's going to be tougher for you to get a job. And again, if you get a job, the IRS is still going to want your money. So you're just basically going to have to hide from the United States government. They'll cancel your passport and you'll never be able to see your family and friends again. So you got to think about that. This is hardcore. This is like you're cutting off a whole part of your life to do this. So that's the realistic aspect of it. It's probably not practical for most people. But I will say, if you're a young person, let's say a young couple, and you have a sense of adventure and maybe you pray about it, God calls you to start a family in Russia where your children will have a chance of a better life. Because let's face it, if you're white, your children are going to have a hard time now in America in the future. It's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's getting worse. We still soon will be a one-party state, and the president will appoint Supreme Court judges that are diverse, and they don't give a shit about the Constitution. So the First Amendment will be gone. The Second Amendment will be gone. The Constitution will be trashed here within a generation. I'm not trying to be black-pilled. It just will. And your children in Russia, because they learn the language as they grow up, they'll speak it fluently, they may have a better chance of a better life. So if you're a young couple, I might consider it, but it's tough because you'll be leaving everything behind, your family. It's sort of a real desperate measure, and I would say probably for 99% of the people, I would say no, it's a bad idea. But for 1%, I can't say 100%. Because after all, the people that came to America, the early colonists, the settlers, they came here in a similar situation. They were seeking a better life because they faced, in many cases, religious persecution, just like Christians are starting to face now. And it's going to get worse now as the various anti-family lobbies and all the weird sex changes start to get more oppressive. you're going to start to see more and more of that. So I would say that America, even now, is not really a free democracy. So to say, well, Russia's not a free democracy, true, but neither is America. So is it worth it? You know, if I was a young guy, let's say like 20 years old, 21, and I didn't have a lot of ties here to America, I didn't see a future, I might take the plunge. I might do it. Now, I'm not going to do it at my age, and for the majority of people, I don't think it's a great idea, but it's interesting. It's interesting. And it'd be interesting to see how the American government would react to that, because if people start doing that, they will initially, like this New Republic article, mock the idea, but if it starts gaining momentum, I'm sure they'll pass laws against it. And so Americans, be like the old Soviets, they'll have to try to defect, they'll have to try to secretly leave America because, again, the same situation. For this regime to work, they need us to keep things running. If we all leave, the whole thing crumbles. Their whole rainbow diversity project will crumble and it become like a Nigeria or a Haiti or something. So they need the people that they hate, and they can't allow those people to escape. That's the situation the Soviet Union used to be in. That's the situation that we could be in now. Talk to you guys later.